You did not arrive here by accident. The place where you were born, the faces you first saw, the voices that shaped your earliest understanding of love and pain, none of it was random. Beneath the surface of what we call reality, there exists a design so precise, so vibrationally aligned, that even the family you were born into carries the imprint of your soul's deepest intentions. Before the body, before the mind, before the veil of forgetfulness descended, your soul made a choice. In a space beyond linear time, you met with those who would become your mother, your father, your siblings, your ancestors. Together you agreed, not with words but with energy, to walk through a shared field of lessons, healing, and remembrance. This was your soul contract, not punishment, not reward, but resonance. Brian Weiss speaks of this with the gentleness of one who has seen many lives unravel and come back together again. Through his regressions, people remember. They remember that even the most painful family dynamics were chosen, not from masochism, but from love. From the soul's desire to evolve, to break old patterns, to reclaim light hidden within generations of silence. You see, the soul doesn't seek comfort, it seeks growth. And often, growth comes wrapped in the very discomfort we resist. The critical father, the distant mother, the sibling rivalry, the generational wounds, each is a portal, a coded invitation to wake up, to choose a new response. To become the alchemist of a lineage crying out for transformation. But why this family? Why these particular souls? Because their frequency matched your curriculum. You chose each other to activate memory, to test compassion, to mirror back the parts of yourself still yearning to be loved. Not everything is about karma or retribution. Much is about opportunity, a chance to rewrite a story, to soften where others hardened, to speak where others remained silent. In spiritual truth, family is not limited to blood. It is a container for sacred contracts, agreements forged in the ether, honored in the flesh. And these contracts are not static. They evolve as you do. They can be renegotiated through awareness, broken through forgiveness, healed through presence. You are never bound to the suffering, only invited to transmute it. Let yourself feel the weight of this understanding. Your parents were once children too, carriers of unprocessed wounds, echoes of their own soul agreements. They may not remember, they may never awaken, but you can. And in your awakening, you become the axis of change. You become the bridge across timelines. The one who chooses presence over repetition. This is not a blame, it is a calling. To see your family not as a burden, but as a mirror. To shift from the victim of circumstance to the conscious participant in a cosmic design. Brian Weiss reminds us that we return to each other over and over, not to suffer, but to heal what was once broken, to love what was once unloved, to see what was once unseen. So when you look at your family now, look again. Look with the eyes of the soul. Feel into the contract that brought you here. Listen beyond the noise, beyond the roles, beyond the past. There is meaning in the messiness. There is gold in the shadow. This is where the journey begins. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel. There is a memory that predates your first breath, a knowing that lives not in the mind but in the folds of your being, a vibrational imprint of everything your soul has witnessed. And though you may not recall the conversations your soul had before entering this life, your body remembers. Your emotional patterns remember. The echoes of your choices reflect the original intention. Brian Weiss often describes how, through past life regression, individuals are able to pierce the veil and access this deeper memory. Suddenly, a seemingly inexplicable fear of abandonment is revealed to be the residue of lifetimes where love was severed. A chronic pattern of self-betrayal unravels back to ancient vows of silence. The source is not always in the now, but it is always accessible through presence. And what of your family? They too carry echoes of what came before. You may sense it in the way your mother holds her grief, as if it doesn't belong entirely to her, or in the way your father withdraws from intimacy, as though guarding a pain too old to name. These are not only psychological traits. They are vibrational inheritances. What was unresolved in them became the field in which you were born. But this is not a curse. It is a continuation and a choice. The moment you become aware of it, you awaken a new possibility. To break a cycle is not to dishonor the past. It is to honor it so deeply that you choose a new direction. You become the lucid dreamer within the ancestral dream. Every reaction, every emotional trigger is an invitation. Not to relive, but to remember. Not the story your mind tells, but the origin your soul knows. And in that remembrance, compassion becomes possible. Not the kind that condones harm, but the kind that sees the wound beneath the action. That understands trauma as a teacher. Weiss reminds us that in many lifetimes, we incarnate in different configurations with the same souls. The mother who withheld affection in this life may have been your sister, your friend, your child in another. The father whose absence carved silence into your heart may once have been the one who stood beside you in battle, or the one you left behind. We are entangled in these soul constellations, drawn together again and again by the gravity of unfinished healing. There is no punishment here, only repetition, until the lesson is learned, until forgiveness becomes more magnetic than resentment, until presence becomes more powerful than pain. This is why awareness is liberation. To look at your family through the lens of eternity is to reclaim your power. No longer a passive recipient of pain, you become an active agent of consciousness. You see the threads, you trace the patterns, and slowly you begin to weave something new. But this work cannot be done from the mind alone. It requires the heart, the courage to feel what has long been buried, the willingness to grieve what was never given, the openness to receive what is finally available. Healing is not linear, it is cyclical. It spirals through layers, revealing deeper truths each time. Your family is your first spiritual classroom. And whether your lessons came through nurture or neglect, the curriculum was always designed for your awakening. Not because pain is sacred, but because your response to it can be. Because your choice to love in the face of hurt changes everything, not just for you, but for those who came before and those who will come after. This is the memory beneath the memory. And it is waiting for you to remember. Forgiveness is not the absolution of another's actions. It is the liberation of your soul from the chain of unconscious repetition. In the sacred contract of family, forgiveness becomes a form of alchemy, the transmutation of pain into presence, resentment into wisdom, resistance into flow. Weiss teaches that many of our soul agreements involve emotional trials that push us toward forgiveness. Not because we are weak, but because the soul understands that love, when remembered beyond trauma, is the most powerful force in the universe. And love remembered in the face of hurt, that is the highest expression of spiritual maturity. What does it mean to forgive the ones who raised you, the ones who may have forgotten how to love themselves, let alone love you? It means to step beyond the role you were assigned, to see not just the behavior, but the origin, to hold their humanity and their unconsciousness in the same breath. To understand that what was done to you was often the echo of what had been done to them, and so the cycle repeated until someone awakened enough to pause, to breathe, to break it. You are that someone. Forgiveness doesn't mean returning to toxicity. It doesn't mean bypassing pain or pretending harm didn't happen. It means allowing the wound to surface fully, acknowledging it without distortion, and then choosing to no longer carry its weight in your heart. It is an act of self-love and a quiet revolution of the soul. The truth is, most of your family's pain has nothing to do with you. It came long before you arrived. You were simply born into the ripple. And now, through your awareness, you can become the still point, the place where the wave dissolves and silence returns. This is the alchemical moment, when you stop asking, "Why did they do this to me?" and begin asking, "What is mine to transform?" The shift is subtle but monumental. It reclaims energy from the past. It reroutes attention toward the now. And in the space where blame once lived, a strange tenderness can begin to emerge. A spaciousness that allows even those who hurt you to become, in your eyes, teachers. Imagine for a moment that you chose your mother not despite her pain, but because of it. That your father's absence carved out a space you would one day fill with your own light. That every unmet need was a prompt to meet yourself more deeply. This is not fantasy. This is the wisdom of the soul. Weiss reminds us, we are not punished for our past lives, but offered opportunities to heal what was left incomplete. Your family may have failed you, but within that failure lies the raw material for your awakening. The stone becomes gold when touched by presence. And forgiveness is the philosopher's stone. In forgiving, you honor the contract. You fulfill the deeper agreement to evolve, to not repeat what was done, but to transmute it, to offer, through your actions, a new blueprint for love, one that is conscious, kind, and free from the residue of generational trauma. Your lineage does not define you, but your choice to bring awareness to it transforms everything. Forgiveness is how the sacred contract breathes. It is how the soul says, yes, I remember why I came here. And when you forgive, not from the mind, but from the marrow of your being, something ancient inside you exhales. The chain breaks, the cycle ends, and love, unburdened, begins to flow again. There comes a moment when the old narrative no longer fits, when the roles assigned to you, the black sheep, the caretaker, the invisible one, feel like costumes from another life. You begin to sense that your identity within your family was never the full truth, but a mask worn for the sake of evolution. This is the threshold. The soul's invitation to step out of inherited roles and into self-authorship, to rewrite the script not from rebellion, but from remembrance. Weiss often speaks of this reclamation as the beginning of true healing, not simply remembering past lives, but realizing that you are the one shaping this one, that the contract with your family was a starting point, not a prison. And once the lesson is integrated, the story can change. To rewrite the script is to reclaim your voice. Perhaps your childhood silenced you, shaped by adults too wounded to hear. Perhaps you were told who you were before you had a chance to find out. Perhaps the love you received came with conditions, and you learned to perform instead of express. But now, with awareness, comes choice. And choice is the birthplace of freedom. You are not obligated to continue a narrative that doesn't honor your soul. The unconscious loyalty we carry to our lineage can be profound. We stay small so others feel safe. We repeat dysfunction because it feels familiar. We sabotage joy because somewhere someone was denied it. But none of this is your truth. These are echoes, not destiny. The soul's work is to bless the past without becoming bound to it, to see the fear, the shame, the scarcity that shaped your family's reality, and to say, I see you, I honor you, and I choose something new. Not from superiority, but from love. From the knowing that liberation is not only possible, but sacred, a gift that ripples backward and forward through time. This is how ancestral healing unfolds, not by erasing what was, but by transforming your relationship to it. You become the living prayer your ancestors never knew they were whispering, the embodiment of what they didn't have the tools to become. And as you walk this new script, one of authenticity, boundaries, presence, and truth, you begin to notice subtle shifts. The dynamic with your parents softens, even if they haven't changed. Your inner child begins to speak louder than your inner critic. Life becomes less about survival and more about embodiment. You're no longer reacting, you're responding, creating, choosing. Weiss emphasizes that the soul seeks healing across timelines. When you shift, you affect not only your present family, but the energetic imprint of every life you've shared. This is quantum healing, the collapse of karma into consciousness. And you are the portal. You are the moment where old agreements dissolve. And yet this rewriting is not loud. It is not a declaration made from ego. It is subtle, sacred, often invisible to others. It lives in the quiet decision to speak your truth, to step away from roles that drain you, to love without losing yourself. It lives in how you show up, not as a character in the old play, but as the author of a new story. This is the gift of the spiritual contract, not to trap you, but to awaken you, to provide just enough friction to spark remembrance, to challenge you into clarity, to bring you home to yourself. And when you live from that place uncentered, whole, aware, you don't need your family to change, because you already have. And through your shift, a new legacy begins. There is a stillness that follows deep transformation, Not silence, but a quiet knowing, as if something ancient within you has been remembered, not through logic, but through vibration. You have walked through the corridors of your soul contract, illuminated the patterns, seen your family not as coincidence, but as catalysts. And now you arrive at the threshold of return, not to the past, but to yourself. This is the gift of awakening. Not the escape from pain, but the presence within it. The ability to look upon your life with eyes wide open, heart softened, and soul aligned. You are no longer just the child of your family. You are the guardian of your soul's journey. Weiss reminds us that our lives are not isolated events. They are chapters in an infinite novel of consciousness. The family you were born into is one passage, one setting, one act within a much larger symphony. And your awakening within that act creates ripples across lifetimes, forward and back. Your healing echoes into the spaces your ancestors could not touch. Your choices rewrite the contract for those who will come after you. This is the power of one awakened being, to shift the axis of an entire lineage. But this power is not forceful. It doesn't seek to change others or prove a point. It hums quietly like a tuning fork, adjusting reality from the inside out. Here it shows up in your breath, your attention, your words, subtle acts of consciousness that dissolve unconsciousness without resistance. You may not always be understood. Your path may appear strange to those still entangled in roles. But the soul doesn't need permission. It needs only truth. And in living your truth, you become a lighthouse, not to fix others, but to remind them of their own light. You have remembered the contract. And more than that, you have outgrown its limitations. Now, you are free to love your family not from obligation, but from clarity. You are free to hold boundaries not from anger, but from self-respect. You are free to see your parents as souls walking their own path, no longer responsible for filling the places inside you that were meant for your own presence. This is the return, not to who you were told to be, but to who you truly are. And in this return, the contract becomes something new, not a script to follow, but a field to dance in, not a burden to carry, but a platform to rise from. You begin to notice that the pain no longer defines you, that the story no longer limits you, that love flows more easily, not because others changed, but because you did. You are no longer seeking your family's approval. You are rooted in your soul's knowing. You are no longer reliving the past, you are rewriting the future. And perhaps as you move through life with this awareness, you will meet others who feel like home in ways your family never did. Kindred souls with whom you share a deeper resonance, not by blood, but by light. These too are your spiritual family, drawn to you not by genetics, but by vibration. In truth, we are all family, all fragments of the same source, remembering ourselves through each other. And when you live from that remembrance, every encounter becomes sacred. Every moment becomes a chance to choose love over fear, presence over pattern, soul over story. You were born into your family for a reason, and now you are free to walk forward with the gift of that reason, integrated, embodied, and alive. If these words touched your soul, subscribe to the channel and click on the video that just appeared on your screen. It was chosen especially for you. I know you'll love it.